So hello and good evening friends. My name is Virupaksh Singh and I was fortunate to secure All India rank 49 in last year's CSE examination. And in today's short video, I shall try to give a very preliminary and basic analysis of the prelims paper, the GS1 paper that happened a few hours ago and my first impressions on it. So if we see the paper was comparatively easier compared to last year. Firstly, I think that the biggest relief that an aspirant will find in the examination hall was that there was not a lot of shock value that was in the previous year's paper because of a complete change in the way that options were presented. And because of this relatively having no relative shock value, I think that the paper would have become easier for students to attempt. Firstly, the most difficult type of questions that any student, any aspirant faces difficulty in managing, that is the pair-based questions, they saw a very drastic decrease. So less than half the number of questions were asked this time. That was pair-based, only one, only two, etc. Secondly, statement 1 and 2 based questions, they also saw a small decrease from 16 to 30. Thirdly, the static and the traditional themes, they occupied a larger space in this year's paper, whether we see traditional concepts like Jainism, Buddhism, which were asked repeatedly from 2013, concepts like troposphere, questions relating to parliament, even current affairs, things that are very much in news, like the metaverse and popular books that we see in discussions like the India Way by Mr. Jaishankar. So I think that comparative to last year, this paper was more solvable, easier, did not have any shock value, and would not have been as uncomfortable as last year's paper was on students. However, there were some things, new elements or tricky elements that were added. Firstly, in statement-based questions, which earlier only had 2 statements, herein even 3 statements were added, which generally make a question lengthier, thereby increasing the time that one needs to reflect and analyze that particular question, and also a little more complicated. Something that was again not asked by UPSC in its previous examinations. Secondly, the pair-based questions this year had 3 columns, which was again a novel way of asking questions by the UPSC. But all in all, these new type of questions did not occupy a very large space in the question paper, and therefore I think were quite manageable. Apart from that, some static and traditional themes, like science and tech, more prominently biotechnology related questions that were asked, they required one to have a deeper conceptual understanding, in my view. Similar was the case regarding economy, wherein questions relating to stock markets, money markets, etc., required one to have a good grasp over the basic concepts that one needs to study in the economy. And this may prove to be a little challenging to some students, some aspirants in the examination theatre. So what can be our basic learnings and takeaways from this paper? Firstly, I think that the biggest learning that continues every time is that UPSC paper, both prelims as well as mains, is very PYQ oriented. This year we saw that questions on 21st June, questions on the Sahel region, which were asked last year itself, they featured prominently. Apart from that, basic books like Lakshmikant for Polity, wherein a lot of questions could be directly answered relating to topics like bills, acts, the large chapter on parliament could be answered. Apart from that, basic themes like Buddhism, Jainism, which have been repeatedly also asked in PYQs, again made a comeback. Apart from that, geography saw a very high increase in the number of questions, having both moderate level as well as some difficult questions, but most questions were easy, like troposphere. Environment ecology, again, we saw 11 questions, economy 14, current affairs 19, and other miscellaneous questions. So it was a mixed bag. And the questions, in my view, were relatively easy compared to last year, most importantly because of the change in the way the options were presented to students. So this can be the basic learning. Apart from that, as UPSC had asked in 2022 for the first time only 2 questions, and they made a very wide comeback in 2023. Therefore, the new type of questions that were asked this year, that is the statement 3 type of questions or 3 column questions, there is a chance that in the subsequent years, these type of questions will be asked in greater number. And apart from that, studying basic books and understanding that this exam is predictable and embracing that unpredictability and being very ready and willing to face it in the exam, I think is the biggest. Apart from that, now This year, because of the extension of the prelims deadline, we have less than 100 days, which generally never happens between prelims and mains, to prepare for the mains examination. So one does not have the luxury to waste a lot of time in these 95 days. In my view, what one should do is that they should be ready with their optional. If they are not already ready, one should try to complete it in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Apart from that, trying to boost their answer writing skills, because that is, in my view, the skill that counts for the most in the mains examination. That can be done with some face-to-face or one-to-one evaluation, which can greatly improve the speed at which one improves at answer writing. And finally, focusing on essay and ethics. These are the two papers that have the highest amount of marks variability and are the deciding factor whether one is selected or not, which service one gets, etc., etc. So focusing on this. And finally, we shall not attempt to make any cutoff predictions. Firstly, because as has been seen in the past years, they are not actually true. And secondly, because the CSAT paper, which will also be a determining factor in this particular cutoff, has not ended yet. But on my preliminary view, if CSAT paper does not come extremely difficult, I believe that the cutoff is bound to increase. How much it will increase, that remains to be seen. Thank you.